What's up, guys? So I'm here with Big Jake, one of our older athletes in the gym, strong as hell, big guy, loves jiu-jitsu, is learning at a really rapid rate. And today we're going to talk about passing and a style of passing that allows older athletes such as Jake to be able to stay safe while on top of a younger, more Gumby, athletic, leg locking athlete, right? So one of the main problems, and Jake will tell you this himself, is that older athletes are worried about getting their legs entered in on when they start passing, right? So they don't want to be standing, and a lot of times what you'll see with older athletes in the gym, even though they have a lot of qualities that could be very beneficial to them, such as having a strong stance because they are strong, they have good isometric strength, as well as very strong grips because they have really strong isometric strength, they choose to go to their knees. And you can go to your knees to pass, but a lot of times you don't need to do that. And using your superior strength from top while standing can still be an even better option. So let's talk about the style of passing that we'll use in order to do this. If Jake is sitting on the ground, what we're gonna look to do is be very responsible with our stance. So our stance here is super, super important. What we don't wanna be doing is just walking in and letting him get whatever grips he wants. He starts pulling me around and making me step. Once we are being pushed and pulled against our will, this is a problem for us. This is where Jake can start to enter into legs. Like say he pulls my leg, I step, now he can enter into an ashigarami right off of a shin to shin or something like that, right? That's a great example of something that might happen. So if you come right here, more center. That's an example of something that can happen, right? And this is why older athletes will choose to go to the knees. But the knees don't really stop you from getting leg locked. It's kind of a misconception because he can still get some kind of upper body grip and pull me into him and elevate me. And then eventually he gets into my knees. Look at that. He's been working on leg locks. He's getting good at these kind of things. So even he will tell you that going to the knees is not necessarily the answer. But one answer that works very well is having a very, very strong and proper stance. So what do I mean by a proper stance? Typically when I'm teaching guard passing, I'm gonna say to have a bladed stance so that we protect our center line. We don't want to walk in front of Jake like this, where I'm walking this way and my center line is exposed for him to get double inside position with his feet. If he can get double inside position with his feet, this is like the meta of all jiu-jitsu right now. It has been for a long time, is to get double inside position on the feet, and then he can do things like shin to shin, or whatever he wants to come into X guard and Irimiyashi and all these different things, right? So typically when I teach guard passing, it's to put a bladed stance, and that means that we're always gonna walk to the opposite side of my front foot. So if I have a right leg lead, I'm gonna actually go to the left. Because now when I go to the left, I never expose my center line to him. I'm always bladed, and there's not really a risk of him coming around behind me because I'm not all the way turned, but there's pretty much zero risk of him entering into double inside position on my center line, right? So for this one, I'm gonna break the rules here, and I'm actually gonna advocate being in a square stance. Typically I don't, because now we're exposing our center line. But what we're gonna do is use wrestling fundamentals to keep Jake in a position where he can't use any of his offensive weapons, right? So think about how difficult it is once I start adding these things together. I have a good stance, and I come into Jake, and I put my head right onto his head. So my forehead goes to his forehead, like this, okay? Not like this, because if I go like this, Jake can come in and wrestle me. He can come underneath, he can start bundling my legs. If I'm too low, he can snap my head down and come up into front headlocks, right? And I start to lose the head height battle, right? So I want to have my head down and into his forehead at all times, just like this. And it never leaves, okay? My forehead is always on him. And then what I'm doing is I'm keeping my elbows and my knees connected at all times, okay? So my elbows and my knees need to be connected because there's the concept of whose grip is it really, right? Where if Jake has my arm and my arm is away from my body, pull me, he can make me step and get out of posture, right? And that's where he can enter my legs and start to attack me. But if I have my knees and elbows connected, now my body is one unit. So when he pulls me, I don't really go anywhere, right? It's nothing meaningful for him. And really, his grip is now my grip. I can either keep it here and I can just come closer into him and it doesn't really help him, or I can strip them. And and I can stay safe and I can continue to put pressure on him. So we're using our head to keep him from wrestling up and keep him from gaining height. He can't come up when our head's pushing down into him, and he can't go under and attack my legs with wrestle ups and leg locks if he can't get close to me because I'm keeping his head away with my head. So I'm leaning into him and I'm putting pressure downwards all the time. I'm using gravity. I'm using our size and strength and our gravity to push him down and make it very uncomfortable for him. He has to make a choice now between either sitting up and putting his shoulders over his hips, which can lead me to snap downs, where now I can just run behind him. Or he's going to be leaning backwards slightly, and he's going to be working out his abs. Like he's going to be in this position where I can't snap him, but now all this pressure is taxing him the entire time. He can feel it in his core. He's just trying to sit up. This is like one long extended sit up for Jake. So this is a terrible position for the bottom person. Just with that head position alone and my structure where he can't pull me and get me out of alignment with the head, right? This is very, very important. My arms are always together. If he grabs my arm and pulls it away from my body, I step my knee up to it, okay? So let's say it gets away from me for a second, I step my knee up to it. It gets away from me for a second, I step my knee up to it, and I keep my head position the whole time. I'm always putting his pressure downwards. We're trying to get him on his back, where he's has less offensive weapons. If a really good guard player is playing here, they want to sit up. So you want to put them on the ground. You want to put them on their back where they're less mobile and you're able to start applying your weight to them, right? So when we're doing this, we have head position and we have our knees and elbows connected. And now the final thing that I want you guys to look for is top hand position. It doesn't matter what kind of hand position it is. I could have my hands like this. I could have my hands like this. I could have my hands here. I could have my hand. I just don't want him to have positive grips over my hands, right? I want to try to get the grips onto his hands however possible. And then one of the best things you can do here is to push it into his own body. So it's very hard for me to hold Jake's grip if I'm just holding onto it. He just pulls it back to himself and he got it back to his body so he can use it to protect himself anyway. And it's not really a useful grip for me. But when I take his hands, I get top hand position, I push them into his body. Now it's very hard for him to take them away. And think about how hard it is to play guard if you can't grab anything. If he has to play guard with just his legs, he's not going to be playing guard for very long before I pass him. So we get in here, we come in very, very close. We're going to look like a T-Rex. It honestly looks stupid. But it keeps you very safe, and it is extremely hard to deal with on the ground. And we'll do a round after this where Jake will do it to me, and I'll show you how difficult it is, even for me, and I'm a pretty good guard player. So we're coming in like this, knees and elbows together, and I'm looking for top hand position. I'm pushing into him. I'm pushing into him. Right now, his shoulders are above his hips, or past his hips, so I would snap him down and put my chest over his head. Now I can literally run to the back, okay? If he's backwards a little bit, I'm getting this top hand position, I'm just pushing into him, try to stay up. I'm just pushing into him, and now I'm starting to get angles. I'm getting angles and still pushing him down. So this did all the work of getting angles for us. A lot of times in guard passing, they talk about getting an angle. And they talk about all this footwork where we're just like jumping, going side to side. Older athletes, they don't want to do that. That's not stuff that we necessarily would want to do, right? Because it kind of necessitates a little bit of athleticism, and maybe you don't want to be juking and jiving and stuff like that. It's not really your game. But you can easily get these angles by keeping the proper head position, getting top hand position, keeping a good posture, and just walking as you push them down. So it's very easy. I come in like this, head position's on point. I've got him, I'm pushing him down, and I'm just walking around to an angle. How hard is it for Jake to stay playing guard, but he literally can't grab me because I have both of his hands controlled? Even if he gets into some kind of, you come forward a little bit. Even if he gets into some kind of leg entanglement, like this, now I can strip it, and I go back to the same position. If you just try to play here, what is Jake gonna do if I'm holding both of his hands? It's very difficult for him to get any kind of offense going when we're doing this. So now, this is great, right? You might be asking, this is perfect, like this is gonna keep me safe. I'm not gonna have issues of them entering into my legs right away with all these defensive options I'm using as I push them down. But what exactly do we do to like finish a pass, right? If you like passing half guard, it's extremely easy to get into half guard from here, right? So if you like passing half guard, I would just come in and I get top hand position, start pushing him down, and I can just get right into half guard. It is so easy to just go straight to half guard if you like passing there. If I, come forward again. If I want to pass on the outside, if I prefer that, then it's also extremely easy to get angles like we talked about. And from there, we can do hip and knee posts. So if you guys aren't familiar with the hip and knee post, this is what it looks like. I come here, I'm pushing him down, I get here, he's bringing his knee and elbow together, right? So this is what's blocking me from pinning him ultimately. So once we get to this angle, I'm just gonna switch from this hand being here to right here. I don't wanna be here. This is where he could grab my elbow, pull it deeper and go into like shotgun arm bars or triangles and things like that. I bring my hand and I bring it all the way into the crease of his hip. And now I'm putting my head into his shoulder. This is the big thing people mess up with this move, is that they go here, but then they keep their head away. And Jake can actually pummel his leg back around and through. Yep, over, exactly. So now I kind of lost my pass. There's things we can do here, but we're not talking about that yet. So it's a very common way for people to defend. So when we do this, we come in, we've got our strong stance where he can't move us out of position. I'm pushing him over, and I got to an angle. And now I walk and I grab this crease of his hip with my elbow. I glue it to my elbow to the crease of his hip. And now I put my head down, try to pummel your leg again. Now it's very difficult. There's no opening for him. There's not enough opening between my head and my arm for him to bring his leg around and lasso me. Right, so now once we get to this position, I'm putting all my weight into Jake. I'm not really doing anything. And now I'm taking this hand and I'm grabbing his knee. If it's along the ground, like this, then we just start running it away. We run it away until we have enough space to put our knee down. And now, if Jake is good, he's gonna be trying to block my hand from grabbing a crossface. So instead of trying to grab here, we just put it on the ground, and as he tries to shrimp away, we follow him. We follow him, and he gives me the crossface I wanted, because he runs into it. As we keep following him with a bladed hip. So again, that was tiring.
That was good.
So we get into this, we walk in, we're defensively responsible, we get our head position on point, we grab his top hands, push them into his body, and we start connecting our knees to our elbows. Once we get an angle on him, we go into the hip and knee post. If it's along the ground, I have a grip that's facing up towards the ceiling. And I start walking away, walking his knee away from his elbow until I can get my knee inside. Once my knee is inside, I'm belading my hips. I don't want to go square because now he can bring his elbow back inside. I lost the pin. So I'm here, I'm belading it. I just put my hand on the ground because he's blocking the crossface. So now he's going to try to shrimp out. That's what everybody's going to do. And I just follow him in a circle until he runs himself into my crossface. And now I go to pin, I push the legs away so he doesn't get a knee elbow connection again, and we're good to play from here. Now, we'll go a little bit more advanced here, but there are times where somebody is very stubborn and they won't go on the ground, right? So if I come in and I have the same structure and I push on his head, I'm pushing him down, and instead of going to the floor, Jake puts his elbow on the floor, and he's like, yeah, he's adamant on staying up. Once this happens, we can go, and instead of trying to keep pushing him this way, we just put our hip and knee post on the other side and we run to the other side. So once he goes here, hip and knee post here, and run to his back. It's a very, very easy transition to the back from there because he's got all of his weight on the other side. So once I start trying to push him down, if he doesn't want to go down, he puts his hand down like that. I just put my hand here and on the knee and I run around the back side. And now we have back exposure and an easy pass. So this is a really easy game plan to not only get somebody on the ground, but also start to get angles without fancy footwork, without having a lot of agility in front of our opponent to keep moving them side to side and doing bullfighting basically to matador them around. And instead, we just use a systematic approach to put him on his back, get an angle, and start getting into dominant positions where we're just draining this guy for minutes at a time. Even if I don't complete this pass here, I get it here, I go to an angle, and I get the hip and knee post. This is very tiring for Jake to recover from. He might recover once, he might recover twice, but each time he does that, his battery is drained, right? And then by the time you do it a third, a fourth time, you back out and do it again, he's gonna be exhausted. He's gonna be begging for you to pass because playing in this position is extremely, extremely taxing. So
here's an example of this style of passing, guys, from a recent tournament of mine. I'm trying to keep my head at the proper level. I'm not always forehead to forehead because this guy is very tall, so you can keep me away a little bit more than others. I'm getting to the hip and knee post like we talked about. This is causing a lot of stress on his cardio at this point. I'm starting to need to back out because he got his knees back in, but that's fine. Like we talked about, we can do it again. This time we're a little bit more head-to-head, backstepping a little bit for an angle, trying to get back to that hip and knee post, and eventually a head block pass to start keeping his head close to me, and again going north-south, and then eventually switching back to side control. I stayed along with this pass even though his knee was in because I had control of his head so he couldn't extend, and then eventually go back to the hip and knee post again. And all of this time, he's getting extremely exhausted to the point where you can see once I've got him, he pretty much gives up.
There we go. Take your time.
So right now, let's have Jake play this with me, and you guys can see, we'll just do it for like a minute. Go ahead. If I'm trying to grab. Angle, you got an angle, go ahead. Exactly. It's extremely hard for me to hand fight here. I know, like on the last video, some of you guys were like, that wouldn't work because what if you hand fought? It's like, okay, well, what if I taught you a double leg and you're like, it wouldn't work if he sprawled. Like, yeah, there's always a counter to a counter, but it is extremely hard for me to hand fight on bottom when he's playing this defensively responsible. So you get here, you go. It's extremely difficult. We really have to be on top of our game as a guard player to even deal with this kind of guard. Go ahead. So as you can see, the fact that he has a head over head position keeps me from wrestling up, keeps me from sitting up, it keeps me from getting up and even standing, because with his head position over my head, if I want to get up to standing, I have to basically expose my back. So like, I can't just go like this because he's pushing me down, so I can't get up. Go ahead, so I'd have to go like this. Now he even has my back. So this is an extremely dominant way of passing, especially for older athletes that don't feel like they want to engage in a lot of agile footwork, or the off chance that they might get their legs entered in on.
It's more energy efficient too, I feel.
It's extremely energy efficient for the top player. It's extremely draining for the bottom player. So give it a shot, guys. Let me know if you want to see more content on this, but I really think that this will help your game, especially if you have a problem with really advanced leg lockers. So give it a shot. See you guys on the mats.